Welcome to your deep dive into the world of global agriculture. We're going to be looking at the November 2024 World Agricultural Production Report.
Oh, well.
It's from the USDA Foreign Agricultural Service.
Okay.
And it's really interesting. It has just tons of data about how weather and global events are shaping what we find on our tables.
Cool.
So today we're on a mission to uncover the most surprising shifts in crop production around the world.
Okay.
The kind of stuff that could actually impact, your grocery bill, your food prices.
Yeah, that's super important these days.
Oh, absolutely.
Food prices are already so high.
I know, it's crazy.
It's a big deal.
So to kick things off, we're heading straight to Kazakhstan.
Okay.
Get this. Their wheat production is absolutely skyrocketing.
Right.
We're talking a 49% increase from last year.
Wow, that's huge.
I know, it's crazy.
What's going on over there?
Well, it sounds like they've had some really favorable weather conditions, particularly abundant rainfall. So they're getting a lot of rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
But I have a feeling there's always in agriculture, right? Too much of a good thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Sometimes backfires.
Yeah, you're right. While the rain has been great, for the quantity of wheat they're producing, there is a chance that it might have affected the quality.
How so?
So too much rain can lead to cooler temperatures, and that can actually impact the protein content of the wheat. So you can imagine maybe your bread being a little less fluffy than usual.
Okay.
If you were getting your wheat from Kazakhstan.
So slightly denser bread in Kazakhstan? Okay. Potentially.
But how does this wheat bonanza impact the rest of the world and maybe even us?
Yeah. So this bumper crop could actually send ripples through the global wheat market.
Okay.
So increased supply often leads to lower prices, right?
Right.
Supply and demand. So Kazakhstan's wheat surplus could potentially translate to lower wheat prices worldwide, eventually making its way to your grocery store.
Okay, so cheaper bread thanks to Kazakhstan's rain. It's possible, yeah.
All right, I'll take it.
We'll see what happens.
But while Kazakhstan celebrates a wheat bonanza, things aren't looking so rosy for Russia.
Yeah, that's true. Their wheat production has taken a hit, down 11% from last year.
Wow. And for a major player in the global wheat market like Russia, that's a significant dip.
Yeah, for sure. Now,
I remember reading that Russia grows both winter and spring wheat.
Right.
Does that play a role in this production decrease?
Absolutely. It's kind of like having two separate wheat crops with different timelines and vulnerabilities.
Okay.
So winter wheat is sown in the fall. It braves the winter chill and is harvested in the spring or early summer. Spring wheat, on the other hand, is planted in the spring and harvested later in the year.
Okay.
So each has its own set of challenges. And it seems spring wheat might have been hit harder this year, contributing to the overall decline.
Makes sense. So are these final numbers for Russia's wheat production, or is there still some guesswork involved?
Well, fortunately, we have a pretty clear picture. Russia's Ministry of Agriculture has reported that the harvest is 98% complete. So the data we're looking at is based on what's called bunker weight. That's essentially the wheat of the grain straight out of the field, including some extra moisture and impurities.
So that's why they use a conversion factor to get the actual usable wheat, right?
Precisely.
Okay.
By applying a conversion factor typically around 96.5%, they account for those impurities and calculate the net weight, the amount of wheat that's actually suitable for use.
Okay.
And don't worry, the USDA report already factors in this conversion.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Yeah.
Speaking of needing reassurance, let's head south to Argentina, where things aren't looking so sunny for their wheat crop either.
Unfortunately, yeah, Argentina got hit with kind of a double whammy of dryness during a critical period for wheat development. So this means lower yields, especially in those key wheat-producing regions like Cordoba, Santa Fe, and Buenos Aires.
Oh, wow, I hadn't even made that connection.
Yeah.
Those are all names I recognize from the grocery store.
Right. Like on my pasta.
Exactly.
So it makes you realize that what happens on farms thousands of miles away can directly affect what we see on our shelves.
Absolutely. It really highlights the interconnectedness of our global food system. A wheat shortage in Argentina could impact their exports, potentially creating a ripple effect in other countries that rely on their wheat. And that ripple effect could even impact, your weekly grocery bill.
It's like a delicate balancing act keeping the world fed. Okay, let's see if we can find some good news in this report. Maybe Brazil can offer a ray of hope with their soybeans.
Ah, yes. Brazil, the soybean powerhouse. They are on track for another record-breaking year with an estimated 169 million metric tons of soybeans.
Wow.
That's a 10% jump from last year.
That's a lot of soybeans.
A lot of soybeans.
Okay.
And that's remarkable considering they had a bit of a nail-biting start to the season.
Yeah, I read about those dry conditions during the winter. It sounded like Brazilian farmers were holding their breath, waiting for those crucial spring rains. Totally. But luckily for Brazil, and probably for soybean lovers worldwide, those rains did arrive in early October.
Okay, good.
And when they did, it was like a green light for the farmers. They went from cautious hesitation to a full-blown planting frenzy, making up for lost time.
That's amazing how much hinges on, these timely showers.
It's true.
Speaking of details, the report mentions a whole bunch of organizations tracking Brazil's soybean production.
Yeah.
It seems like everyone's keeping a close eye on this vital crop.
You're right. We see data from Conab IMEA and Daryl. These are organizations dedicated to monitoring and analyzing Brazil's agricultural landscape.
Right.
So their collaborative efforts ensure we have a clear and accurate picture of the soybean situation.
Okay, that level of monitoring is almost reassuring. Okay, I hate to bring the mood down, but we have to talk about sunflower seed production in Turkey. It's not looking good.
Unfortunately, no. Turkey's sunflower seed production is down 11% this year.
Okay.
And the culprit?
I'm going to guess weather.
You guessed it. Unforgiving weather. Drier and hotter than usual conditions, especially in key growing regions like Thrace, have taken a toll on yields.
Yeah, the report mentions some farmers in Thrace reporting losses of up to 50%. That's just devastating. What does this mean for the bigger picture of sunflower seed production in Turkey?
Well, this could potentially push their production to its lowest level since 2016-17, which is significant, for a country that plays a major role in the global sunflower oil market. So imagine tighter supplies, potential price hikes. It's a domino effect that could be felt worldwide.
Okay, I need some good news to end this section of our agricultural journey.
Okay.
What about India? They're a major agricultural player, right?
India is definitely a force to be reckoned with in agriculture. And they've got a success story to share this year.
Okay, good.
Their rice production is reaching record highs.
Yes. Finally, some good news. How did they pull that off?
It's a combination of factors. First, farmers seem to be shifting away from cotton and dedicating more land to rice. Second, the weather gods have been smiling upon India's rice fields during the Kharif season, which is one of their main rice growing periods. And we're not just talking anecdotal evidence here. We have satellite data showing the percent of average seasonal greenness. It confirms that those rice fields are thriving.
So we have happy farmers, healthy rice plants, and satellite imagery to prove it.
Yeah.
Sounds like a win-win situation. But you mentioned Kharif season. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. It's one of India's two main rice-growing seasons.
Okay.
The Kharif season aligns with the arrival of the monsoon in June and July, with harvesting happening around September and October. The other season, known as Rabi, takes place during the winter months.
So India is essentially a year-round rice-producing machine.
Exactly. And this year, the late withdrawal of the southwest monsoon has been an added bonus for the Kharif rice crop, especially those late-planted varieties. It's like nature gave them an extra helping hand.
It's incredible how these subtle shifts in weather patterns can have such a profound impact on a country's agricultural output and ultimately the global food supply. This is getting really fascinating.
You're right. It's all connected.
Yeah.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's much more to uncover in this USDA report.
I'm ready for more. Let's dive back in.
Let's do it. While India's rice production is hitting those record highs we talked about, their neighbor Bangladesh is facing a bit of a different scenario.
That's interesting. I know Bangladesh is a big rice producer, too. What's happening there?
Well, the USDA report is predicting a slight dip in their rice production for the 2024-25 marketing year. It seems they've had some tough luck with weather during their Os and Aman rice seasons.
Right. Os and Aman, I'm familiar with Kharif and Rabi, but those are new to me.
You've got a good memory. Remember how we talked about India having two main rice growing seasons?
Yeah.
Well, Bangladesh takes it up a notch. They cultivate rice year-round, dividing their growing season into three periods, Boremes and Amman.
Wow, that's impressive. So how did these Os and Aman seasons relate to the Kharif and Rabi seasons we talked about in India?
Think of it like this. The Austen season in Bangladesh happens during the pre-monsoon period, similar to the early part of India's Kharif season. And the Amman season in Bangladesh coincides with the monsoon season, just like the later part of India's Kharif season. They both rely on that monsoon rainfall, making them vulnerable to similar weather challenges.
Ah, that makes sense. So is it these Abanan seasons that are dragging down Bangladesh's overall rice production?
Exactly. The Abanan season got hit with higher than usual instances of pests and diseases, which can really impact yields. And the Ramadan season, well, they got slammed with heavy rains and flooding, especially in the eastern and southern districts where a lot of their rice is grown.
That sounds rough. Those intense weather events can really derail a whole season's worth of work. It makes you wonder about the long-term impacts of climate change on regions like Bangladesh that are so reliant on rice.
It's definitely a concern, but there is a sliver of good news in the report. The burrow season, which is their largest rice crop, seems to have dodged those weather bullets. In fact, they're seeing a record yield of 4.8 tons per hectare. That's a 2% increase from last year.
Okay, so not a complete disaster for Bangladesh's rice production. It sounds like they've got at least one season to celebrate. Now, let's shift gears and talk about corn. What's the outlook for Mexico's corn production?
Mexico's corn production is estimated to be around 24.5 million metric tons for the 2024-25 marketing year. It's a bit of a mixed bag, up 4% from last year when they were battling that severe drought, but still 7% below their 5-year average.
So they're recovering, but not quite out of the woods yet.
That's a great way to put it. Their spring-summer corn crop, which makes up the bulk of their production, bounced back nicely thanks to some above-average rainfall during those crucial growing months. But the fall-winter season is facing a different kind of challenge: water scarcity.
Oh, right. I remember reading about those low reservoir levels. How is that impacting their fall-winter corn crop?
Imagine trying to grow a thirsty crop like corn with limited water. That's the situation in Sinaloa, where they grow almost 70% of their winter corn. The report states that reservoir levels there are at their lowest point for October in over 2 decades, and it's not just numbers on a page. They've included satellite images showing the Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla Reservoir, the largest in Sinaloa, looking pretty dry compared to previous years.
Wow, that's a powerful visual. So what does this mean for the upcoming corn harvest?
Well, historically, their fall-winter corn production in Sinaloa
Right.
has ranged from 3.2 to 6.5 million metric tons. But with those reservoirs looking so depleted, it's unlikely they'll hit those numbers this year. It's a reminder of how those long-term droughts can have a lasting impact even when things start to improve.
It's a tough situation, especially for those farmers in Sinaloa. Okay, let's move on to another staple crop, cotton. What's happening in Spain, one of Europe's top cotton producers?
Spain's cotton production is estimated to be around 195,000 bales for the 2024-25 marketing year. That's a significant jump from last year's drought-stricken crop, but still below their 5-year average. They've been battling a severe drought for 3 years now, which has really taken a toll on the reservoir levels and forced the government to put restrictions on irrigation.
3 years of drought. That's incredible. So are those lingering drought effects still impacting their cotton production this year?
Absolutely. Even though they got some much-needed rain in the spring of 2024, it was too late to fully recover from those years of water scarcity. Many farmers simply couldn't plant their usual amount of cotton because of the limited water supply. And on top of that, they've also been dealing with pest infestations, which can further reduce yields.
It's like one challenge after another. But wait, I remember reading about some severe flooding in Spain recently. Did that affect their cotton growing areas?
You're right. Parts of Spain, including some cotton-growing areas in Andalusia, got hit with some intense flooding in late October. It's definitely a concern, but thankfully the flooding happened when the harvest was already well underway, so while there might be some quality losses, the overall impact on yields shouldn't be too severe.
It's a reminder that even when a crop survives one extreme weather event, another one could be right around the corner. Okay, let's venture back to the Americas.
Let's talk about soybean production in Paraguay.
Okay, Paraguay. What's the soybean situation there?
Well, they're projected to produce about 9.5 million metric tons of soybeans in the 2024-25 marketing year. That's a slight decrease from last year, but still a pretty solid number.
Is there anything in particular impacting their production this year?
It seems like they had a bit of a rough start to the season with some dry conditions that delayed planting in certain areas, but thankfully the rains did eventually arrive, allowing the crop to recover somewhat. However, there's still some concerns about those early season dry conditions impacting the overall yield.
It's a good reminder of how crucial those early stages of crop development are, and how even a short period of dryness can have a lasting effect. Okay, ready to explore another region.
Absolutely. Let's shift our focus to India and talk about a crop we haven't discussed yet in terms of oilseed production soybeans.
I'm all ears. India's agricultural sector is always fascinating.
Get this. Despite facing some early season dryness during planting in the vegetative stages, India's soybean production is still projected to hit a record high of 12.6 million metric tons.
Wow, that's incredible. How did they manage to overcome those initial challenges? It seems like dryness has been a recurring theme in this report.
You're absolutely right. It's a testament to the resilience of India's soybean crop and the skill of their farmers. And Mother Nature deserves some credit too. Those above normal rains arrived just in time to boost the crop during those critical flowering and pod development stages. It was like a perfectly timed intervention.
It's amazing how those timely rains can turn a potentially disastrous season into a record-breaking one. The report also mentioned a late withdrawal of the southwest monsoon. Does that have anything to do with their soybean success?
It certainly played a role. The southwest monsoon typically starts retreating from India around September, but this year it hung around a bit longer, providing some extended rainfall that was particularly beneficial for those developing soybean pods.
It's like nature decided to give India's soybean crop a little extra boost this year. And speaking of boosts, let's talk about Spain's cotton production again. We already touched on the challenges they're facing, but I remember there was something about their yields that seemed almost too good to be true.
Ah, yes. This is where things get really interesting. Despite all the setbacks we talked about, the drought, the pests, even the late season flooding, Spain's cotton yield is estimated to be a whopping 885 kilograms per hectare. That's 182% higher than last year's drought-stricken crop, and even 7% above their 5-year average.
Wait, that doesn't make sense. How can their yields be so high with all those challenges? It's almost like they found a secret weapon against drought and pests.
It's a combination of factors, really. While those late rains definitely help those drought-stressed plants, it's also likely due to advancements in cotton breeding and farming techniques. They've developed new varieties that are more resilient to challenges like pests and water scarcity.
So it's not magic, it's science. It's amazing how innovation in agriculture can help overcome these seemingly insurmountable obstacles.
It's a testament to human ingenuity and the determination of farmers to adapt and thrive, even in the face of adversity.
Speaking of facing adversity, let's revisit Turkey's sunflower seed production. They were hit pretty hard by those dry conditions, right?
Unfortunately, yes. The USDA report has revised their estimate for Turkey's sunflower seed production down to 1.4 million metric tons. That's an 11% decrease from both last month's estimate and last year's production, and it's a whopping 19% drop from their 5-year average.
Wow, those are some significant drops, and I remember the report pointing to those drier and hotter than usual conditions as the main culprit, particularly in those sunflower-heavy regions like Thrace.
Exactly. Those scorching summer temperatures during that crucial sunflower development period really took a toll. Imagine this. Farmers in Thrace are reporting yield losses of up to 50% compared to their long-term average. It's heartbreaking.
It's hard to fathom those kinds of losses. What does this mean for Turkey's overall sunflower seed production?
Well, the report predicts that this drier weather and resulting yield losses will likely push Turkey's total sunflower seed production to its lowest level since 2016-17. That's a major shift for a country that's usually one of the world's top sunflower seed producers.
And knowing that Turkey is a key player in the global sunflower oil market, I can only imagine the ripple effects this production decline will have worldwide.
You're spot on. A decrease in their production could lead to tighter global supplies of sunflower oil, potentially driving up prices. It's definitely something consumers around the world should keep an eye on. It really goes to show how interconnected our global food system truly is. A weather event in one part of the world can have consequences that are felt on a global scale.
It's a powerful reminder of how much we rely on a stable and balanced agricultural system.
Okay, I'm ready for another deep dive into the report.
Great. Let's circle back to India and take another look at their soybean production.
Interesting. Are they facing similar challenges to Turkey's sunflower seed producers?
Thankfully, it's a different story for soybeans in India. Remember how we discussed their projected record-breaking harvest of 12.6 million metric tons?
Yes, that number stuck with me. It's quite impressive.
Well, even with all the updated information in this report, that estimate remains unchanged. India's soybean production is holding strong.
That's reassuring to hear. So despite all the ups and downs we've seen in other global markets, India's soybean production is a beacon of stability. Absolutely. It's a testament to their agricultural expertise and the resilience of their crops.
It sounds like they've got a winning formula. What's contributing to their soybean success this year?
Well, they've increased the amount of land dedicated to soybean cultivation, and they've benefited from some well-timed rainfall during those crucial growth stages. Those August rains we talked about earlier, along with that extended monsoon season, played a key role in boosting their yields.
It's fascinating how these subtle shifts in weather patterns can have such a dramatic impact on a country's agricultural output.
It's a delicate dance between nature and human intervention, isn't it? And it seems like India has found the right rhythm this year with their soybeans.
All right, I'm ready to explore another corner of the global agricultural landscape, What else have you gleaned from this treasure trove of data?
Let's turn our attention back to rice and see what's happening in Bangladesh.
Okay, remind me, where do we leave off with their rice production?
We talked about how Bangladesh is facing a slight decline in overall rice production for the 2024-25 marketing year due to those challenges during the Evaros and Amman seasons. But we also highlighted that record yield in the Boro season. It was a bit of a mixed bag.
Right, a classic case of agricultural ups and downs. So are there any new developments in their rice situation?
Well, the report reiterates those challenges faced during the Evaros and Amman seasons, particularly the impact of heavy rains and flooding during the Evaron season, which caused significant damage in the eastern and southern districts.
It's tough to hear that those weather events continue to affect their rice production. Are there any positive takeaways from this updated report?
The good news is that the report maintains its initial estimate of a record yield for the Boro season. This suggests that despite the overall decline in rice production, certain segments of Bangladesh's rice sector are still performing well.
It's good to hear that it's not all doom and gloom. So what's the overall takeaway for Bangladesh's rice production?
Despite the challenges, Bangladesh's rice production is showing some resilience. That record yield in the Boro season is a positive sign, but they'll need to address those vulnerabilities in the Aknes and Amman seasons to ensure long-term stability in their rice sector.
It's a reminder that even in the face of setbacks, there's always potential for improvement and innovation. Speaking of innovation, let's move on to another crop that's often at the forefront of agricultural advancements. Corn. What's the latest on Mexico's corn situation?
Let's dive back into those details. Remember those concerns about low reservoir levels impacting their fall-winter corn crop?
Yes, especially in Sinaloa, where a large chunk of their corn is grown. What does the updated report say about that?
Well, the report maintains its previous estimate for Mexico's corn production in the 2024-25 marketing year at 24.5 million metric tons.
Okay, so no major changes in their overall production outlook. But what about those low reservoir levels? Are they still a concern?
Absolutely. The report continues to highlight those low reservoir levels as a major factor impacting their fall-winter corn crop, especially in Sinaloa. And those low levels are a direct result of that multi-year drought they've been battling.
So even though the drought has eased somewhat, its effects are still being felt.
Exactly. There hasn't been enough rainfall to replenish those reservoirs, and that lack of water is directly affecting the fall-winter corn planting decisions and potential yields. It's a classic example of how a drought one year can have cascading effects for years to come.
It's like a domino effect impacting both the environment and the livelihoods of those who depend on it. Okay, I think we have time for one more deep dive before we wrap up this part of our exploration. What do you suggest?
Let's revisit cotton production in Spain. We already touched on some of the challenges they're facing, but there's still some interesting details to uncover.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What else is there to discover about Spain's cotton situation?
Well, the report reinforces its previous estimates for Spain's cotton production and highlights the complex interplay of factors influencing the crop's outlook.
Can you elaborate on those factors? It seems like they've had a roller coaster of a season.
You could say that the report continues to emphasize the impact of that three-year drought, which has significantly reduced their reservoir levels and limited the amount of water available for irrigation. This has led to a decrease in the overall area planted with cotton, contributing to that lower production compared to their 5-year average.
So the drought's legacy continues to affect their cotton sector. Are there any other challenges they're grappling with?
Unfortunately, yes. On top of the lingering drought effects, the report mentions reports of pest infestations in cotton-growing areas, which could further reduce yields.
It's like they can't catch a break. It seems like every time they overcome one obstacle, another one emerges. Did the report specify the types of pests causing these issues?
Unfortunately, the report doesn't delve into specifics about the pests or the severity of the infestations, but it does suggest that these pest issues are adding to the overall uncertainty surrounding Spain's cotton production for this marketing year.
It sounds like Spain's cotton producers have their work cut out for them this year. Are there any positive takeaways from this updated report?
While the report does highlight the challenges, it also acknowledges the resilience of Spain's cotton sector, even with the drought pest pressure and those late-season floods. Their yields are still projected to be significantly higher than last year.
That's encouraging. It seems like Spain's cotton growers are quite adept at adapting to difficult circumstances.
Absolutely. They've faced a triple threat this year, but their commitment to producing a crop is truly commendable.
I'm always inspired by the resilience and determination of farmers worldwide. They face so many challenges, yet they continue to find ways to produce the food we all rely on.
It's a testament to their hard work and ingenuity.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in our deep dive, from soybeans in Brazil to rice in Bangladesh. It seems like every corner of the world has a story to tell.
It really does. And we still have a few more details to uncover in this report.
All right, well, I'm ready for more. So where should we head next on our adventure?
Let's circle back to Kazakhstan, where we started our journey. Remember that 49% increase in wheat production.
Yes, fueled by those abundant rains.
Right. But we also talk about how all that rain might have impacted the quality.
Yeah.
So the report digs a bit deeper and suggests that some of the wheat produced might have a slightly lower protein content than usual because of those cooler temperatures.
Ah, so a potential trade-off between quantity and quality.
Yeah, how interesting.
How does this lower protein content actually, affect the wheat, though?
It could impact its suitability for certain baking applications.
Yeah.
Imagine a loaf of bread that doesn't rise quite as high, or pasta that's a bit less al dente.
Okay.
It's a subtle difference, but it just highlights how even seemingly ideal growing conditions can have these unexpected nuances.
It's like Mother Nature always keeps us guessing.
Always.
Okay. What other surprises does this report have in store for us?
Let's shift our focus back to Russia, another major wheat producer. We talked about their overall decrease in production, but the report actually provides a fascinating breakdown of their wheat production by type.
Right, winter wheat and spring wheat.
Exactly. And it turns out there's a significant difference in performance between those two types this year.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the story with Russia's winter and spring wheat?
Well, their winter wheat production, which is the majority of their output, is estimated at a respectable 57.5 million metric tons. But their spring wheat production took a sharper hit, coming in at 24 million tons.
So a decent harvest for winter wheat, but much lower for spring wheat. Was it the weather?
It seems like those unfavorable conditions during the spring planting and growing season were the main culprit. Spring wheat was just more susceptible to those challenges.
It really highlights how, even within a single country, regional variations in weather can create such vastly different outcomes.
It's true.
Okay, ready for our final stop on our crop production tour.
Absolutely. Let's end our journey with a familiar success story, India's soybean production.
Yes, I was hoping we'd circle back to that. They seem to be defying the odds this year.
They are. The latest report confirms that their soybean production is holding strong. They're still on track for a record-breaking harvest.
That's great to hear. It's like a beacon of hope amidst all the uncertainty. What's their secret?
A combination of factors, really. They've expanded their soybean acreage, and they've had timely rains during those crucial growth stages, those August rains we talked about, plus that extended monsoon season.
Well, it's a testament to their expertise and their ability to adapt to these changing conditions.
It is.
And on that note of resilience, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into global crop production trends.
It has been quite a journey exploring, the complexities of our global food system.
We've seen firsthand how weather, can make or break a harvest, and how global events can send those ripples through markets, but also how human ingenuity can really help to overcome even the most daunting challenges.
It's a reminder that we're all connected, from the farmers in the fields to the consumers at the grocery store. Understanding these global trends is crucial for ensuring a stable food supply for everyone.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into global crop production. We hope you found it insightful and engaging.
Yes, and remember, there's always more to explore. We encourage you to delve into the full USDA report and other resources to learn more about this fascinating world of agriculture. Until next time.